Good evening, Kinaway members, and welcome back to another episode of Kinaway TV. As you may have noticed, we have taken a week off to freshen up, but we're back to deliver our beloved members more episodes of Kinaway TV. I'd like to start off by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're all meeting and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Before I introduce tonight's guest, I'd like to remind our viewers of the support services currently available to access through Kinaway. The first support package being on offer, which is in collaboration with Kinaway member Claystone Marketing, is free access to Claystone's social media marketing course. The course provides an overview of social media marketing strategies and tools which helps highlight marketing opportunities for Indigenous business. It's a great resource and is really helpful to businesses looking to solidify their online presence. In another collaborative effort, Kinaway is excited to partner with Boost Legal Templates. Designed for small businesses, Boost Legal Templates gives you clarity, safety, and access to real quality legal templates. Just complete the friendly questionnaire and you will instantly receive your own legal template, which you can take pride in knowing it has been created specifically for your business. This collaboration will save member businesses time, money, and ensures businesses are on the go while implementing good business governance. Kinaway is proud to offer members a 25% discount across all Boost legal templates. So if you feel this is something you may be interested in, please contact the Kinaway team. There are some other support services we here at Kinaway are looking to deliver, with the first being the business tax support package. This package provides access to a range of bookkeeping and accounting services, preparation and submission of tax returns and BAS statements, online access to Xero and MyOb, tax and payroll obligations, and superannuation and work cover obligations to staff. Please note that this has been made previously available, and we here at Kinaway are currently processing a number of applications and have suspended any future applications for the time being. But please keep an eye out as this may reopen at a future date. Another support package we are looking to deliver is support for our member businesses around digital capability, whether it be website development, e-commerce capabilities, social media marketing, and many other components surrounding a business and its digital presence. So please keep an eye out for this one also. The next support service I'd like to mention is a confidential phone crisis line for Victorian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, launched by the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service. The service is for Indigenous people and families who feel they may need to have a yarn with someone about their wellbeing. This 1-800 helpline is a statewide social and emotional wellbeing service. The helpline, which number is 1-800 95 9563, will operate 7 days a week from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. And you'll find their contact information on the screen throughout tonight's webinar. And of course, the team here at Kinaway are working hard to be present for our members. So keep an eye out as we look to host more webinars revolving around mental health and wellbeing and business and personal development. There's plenty of webinars on these topics already available on our Facebook and YouTube channels. So please feel free to jump on at any stage and make yourself familiar with the content. Along with the webinars and support packages mentioned, Kinaway is still offering the usual forms of business support for our members. So if you feel you may need assistance or support of any kind, please feel free to get in contact with the team here at Kinaway. For this evening's webinar, we're pleased to welcome Jacara Egan. Jacara is a Muthi Gunditjtmara woman and is a founder and lead social emotional wellbeing practitioner at Jaquara Jeans. Jacara Jeans' mission is to provide holistic health services to support Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people to reconnect and improve their physical health as well as their social and emotional well-being through talking therapy, physical movement, education, and Wayapa Wuurrk. Jacara is a mental health social worker with over 10 years' experience in therapeutic and clinical mental health, a fitness coach, as well as a Wayapa Wuurrk practitioner. Tonight, Jacara will be talking about the philosophy of being an earth custodian and create individual collective well-being. She'll be covering topics such as what is Wayapa, the concepts of Wayapa, finding the silver lining, and how to apply Wayapa to get through these challenging pandemic times. We hope you enjoy the webinar. If you have any questions throughout, please post them to either Kinaway's Facebook or YouTube channels, as we will have some time after the presentation to answer any questions you may have. So without taking up too much more of your time, I'd like to welcome Jacara to this evening's webinar. We hope you all enjoy, and don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notifications for Kinaway updates.
Natuma natungot linyong Jacara, Gunditjtmara, Mati-Mati-Ma, Natuk wangan nyuntung mirang-mirang Wurrundjeri alamin, Wurrundjeri Ma, Wurrundjeri mirang. Greetings, my name is Jacara. I'm from the Gunditjtmara Madi people. I respect Mother Earth, the Wurrundjeri ancestors, Wurrundjeri people, and Wurrundjeri land. I would also like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on wherever you are out there today, joining us live or maybe watching this back later. And I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Also acknowledging the sovereignty of our lands were never ceded. So thank you very much, James, for that intro. I'm a late sub-in for today, so bear with me, guys. I'm really excited to be here and very passionate about Wayapa Wuurrk and sharing that with you tonight. I'm very blessed to be able to share some of my cultural knowledge, my own cultural journey here in Nam on Wurrundjeri country. So I am a mental health social worker. I grew up in Mildura, came down to the Big Smoke to do my social work degree, freaked out a little bit and went back home to finish that off. I've been up north, worked a little bit up north, and kind of on my travels and as an athlete growing up as well, and loving movement and understanding what movement and exercise could do for me and my well-being and my mental health. I kind of thought, there's more to this mental health business than just sitting in a room yarning up with someone. That's super important, but there's a little bit more, and we need to be looking at our health, as we know, as First Nations people, in a really holistic way. So along the journey, I then became a fitness coach, bringing that love of mental health, kind of talking, looking at the mind with looking at the body and looking at how can we combine those two things to really improve our social emotional well-being. I then became a mother and I have two really active little boys. So I know now more than ever, it's super important to be looking after ourselves and utilising all of the tools and looking at all aspects of our health and mental health. So like I said, I'm a late sub in tonight. Jamie couldn't be here. I'm representing Wayapa Wuurrk and talking about, like I mentioned before, something I'm really passionate about and how we can utilise Wayapa in this unprecedented and tough time. So tonight we're going to look at what is Wayapa, concepts kind of underpinning Wayapa, the earth, body, mind, spirit benefits of Wayapa, reflections and silver linings of a time of this pandemic and the time that we're in. And then we'll finish off just by looking at, well, how can we utilise Wayapa in this challenging time to really stay strong, stay connected and look after our healing and mental health and well-being. So jumping straight into it, what is Wayapa Wuurrk? It is an earth connection wellness practice based on Aboriginal wisdom that combines earth mindfulness, narrative meditation and physical movement to create holistic well-being and sustainability. So like I said before, as a mental health social worker, it's this beautiful blend of mind and body and utilising those two parts of our whole and two different tools to bring that together to really foster and strengthen our own kind of spirits and social emotional well-being. So Wayapa utilises and the core principle of we start our own journeys of healing by healing the planet and healing Mother Earth. So it teaches us all about earth stewardship, and healing may not be the right language for you. We're all on different kind of journeys with our healing and our mental health and our spirits and our strengthening. So I also like to talk about this, and as a mental health social worker, talk about how we need to be thinking about things like Wayapa and other tools and earth stewardship and looking after our self-care as a means of keeping us strong before we may get to that point of needing that healing. But I know a lot more about their, are bravely walking that path and undertaking their own healing. So we look at, and we definitely know that our environment and our Mother Earth is not in the best shape, and we do need to really focus on healing her so we can live our best lives, really. So who wants to just survive when we can really thrive? And I just don't think we can be living our best lives and being as strong as we can be if our Mother Earth is unwell as well. So unwell, and we need to be looking after her. So Wayapa utilises 14 elements to take us through a narrative, to take us back to a way of living that is really values-driven and purposeful, and it makes us reflect and look at these elements through three lenses. So each element has its own teaching, and when we look at it through these three lenses, it really gives us this beauty and this depth to our purpose and way of being, and really embraces First Nations way of being. I'll give you an example. The 9th element is the air element. So it's my favourite. It could be any animal that exists in the air. Some of you may have already done Wayapa and done the movement practice. Unfortunately, we won't be doing that tonight. But like I said, I'll talk about how you can access it at the end and get a bit more Wayapa in your life. But if we look at Welligal, the eagle, this element teaches us that we need to be looking at things from a different perspective, and anything that exists in the air will be soaring over the land and looking at things from the place of our ancestors and looking at problems from a different angle. So it really encourages us to shift and practice empathy, practice perspective, and I think that's more important now more than ever. So when we are doing the whole movement practice and pulling all these elements together, we can really go through the movements that join that teaching and that thinking that the air element and every element, all the 14 elements of Wayapa gives us. So Wayapa is connect in the language of the Mara people of Southwest Victoria, and Wuurrk means country in the language of the Gunai people of Gippsland. So like I said, I'm here representing Wayapa Wuurrk on behalf of the creators of this modality, Jamie and Sarah. And it's been around since about 2014. So there are over 100 practitioners across Australia, and not all of us are Aboriginal. And that is one of the unique and beautiful things about Wayapa, is that it invites all of us to explore the ways of being of the oldest continual living culture in the world, my culture, your culture, our culture. But it also teaches us that we are all the same, and at some point all of our ancestors had to live in a way off the land and utilise their precious resources in order to survive and thrive and be really strong in their ways of living. So it really invites you to connect with yourself and your culture, which is, I believe, is central to our resilience and to our ability to cope, which at this point in time, stage 4 lockdown in Melbourne, if you are in the Melbourne area, we're really drawing on our internal and external resources more than ever, and our resilience more than ever. So Wayapa gives us a greater purpose and sense of belonging. It's not just a movement practice that you can engage in for 25 minutes a day. I absolutely want you to and encourage you to do that, to utilise the movement practice daily. Put that in your self-care toolkit. But what we talk about as practitioners is not losing sight of the narrative and not losing sight of what the narrative and the movements combined are teaching us and asking us to do. So if we look at the concepts of Wayapa, it is the only known Indigenous wellness modality derived from the ancient wisdoms of our mob, and the only certified modality through the International Institute of Complementary Therapists. And that's because our ancestors, it's a strong modality. Our ancestors held knowledge and engaged in practices that kept us well and thriving for over 60,000, 70,000, sometimes up to 120,000 years. We are the oldest continuing living culture, and we are that for a reason. We utilised and lived these concepts and practices to keep us going for that long. And we survived, colonisation and 200 years plus of trauma and ongoing trauma, and we are still a strong peoples, and we are still a resilient peoples because we are still practicing some of this daily. So, as Aboriginal people, I believe, to talk a bit of white fella way, this is our core business, to look after Mother Earth, and that's probably the first concept that we'll talk about, is that idea of earth mindfulness and whole sensory connectivity. So the three lenses that we're utilising when we're looking at each element, so the environmental lens, the cultural lens, and the cultural teachings of each element, as well as our own personal stories and experiences, it gives us three ways to tap into these knowledges. But first and foremost, it's about earth mindfulness, and it's about going back to our core business and engaging with Mother Earth and looking after and connecting back with Mother Earth through earth mindfulness. We do that through whole sensory connectivity. So when we do the practice, we utilise all of our senses to take us through this narrative meditation, this movement. We connect with the environment, and we bring to mind and visualise spaces that hold us and that keep us safe, and utilising, touch, smell, taste. Touch, smell, taste. I always get these wrong. Touch, smell, taste, hearing, and that last one, I'm sure we'll sub that in later. So mindfulness is a very westernized concept. The word mindfulness is probably something that our ancestors would have had no idea about. So I must give a shout out here to the ladies down at Jacara. I've been engaging in some workshops through the Koori Women's Places, which has been really deadly, and connecting with other Aboriginal women. And we were yarning up about this mindfulness last week, and we're talking about, for our mob, it's really about deep listening and sitting and really being where we are and connecting with Mother Earth, with everyone around us, and with the present moment. So we call it earth mindfulness now. We call it whole sensory connectivity now, but for our ancestors, it was really this ability to sit and be and engage in that really deep listening. Another concept that underpins Wayapa is the concept of living in a really balanced way and in harmony with our environment. So our societies weren't hierarchical. We were all had a role and all had a place and value within our society, and we all progressed through that as we worked and gained knowledge. So even within our kind of family and kinship systems, it was a really balanced approach to keeping, the biggest thing was to keep the mob safe and to keep them alive, and to thrive and keep them healthy. So not only were we living in a really balanced way with our own people, with our own mobs, but we were living in a really balanced way with Mother Nature, with Mother Earth. So we were very much in harmony with the environment. We didn't think we were separate from it. We weren't above or below it. We were definitely a part of it. The flora and fauna were our brothers and sisters, are our brothers and sisters, and we need to be caring for them like they are, and caring for our precious resources like that, the precious resources that they are. So right now, I believe, we're living in this very, where westernized, we're the top of the food chain kind of way, and it's not working for us at all, and we've become extremely disconnected. We've overused our resources in terms of food, in terms of, logging forests for buildings and for other things, and if we're not careful, if we don't take a couple of steps back and really stop and look at that and go back to some kind of balance, we're going to do some irreversible damage. So we within Wayapa, we look at, that's pretty big, but we look at, well, how can I, as one person and as part of my community, how can I embrace and do something, embrace these concepts and do something about that? And the last concept that I just like to touch on and yarn about is that the concept of energy. So we're all energy, and we can all feel, if we're really in tune with each other and connected with each other, we can really feel each other's energy. You've all been in a room where someone's been up and about, and you've caught their energy, or you've been out in this beautiful kind of bush or by a really healthy flowing river and just felt that energy of calm and balance and being at peace. So, when we disconnect from the busyness and that kind of go kind of lifestyle that the Western world and has demanded of us, then we can reconnect with that energy and that calm and peaceful energy of the environment, but also the beautiful energy of everyone around us and looking after each other. And that the idea of reciprocity. So as Aboriginal people, we understood that whatever we gave and put into the earth, into our resources, into our brothers and sisters, we would get back. So we would look after ourselves. So that concept of healing Mother Earth, we're looking after ourselves by looking after our Mother Earth and looking after each other. So let's just have a quick yarn about earth, body, mind, spirit benefits of Wayapa. And, you know, talking about some of those concepts can feel really big, and I don't want this to feel overwhelming. This is kind of a self-care webinar. We want just to feel good and feel like, yeah, I can do something for myself and make an impact after I've watched this webinar and walk away from this webinar and take some of these ideas that Wayapa Wuurrk give us. So I say to that never underestimate your impact on Mother Earth. We talk about small steps making a real difference. And as a practitioner, I think I've been a practitioner for a couple of years now. I'm terrible with time, but and I've done a fair few workshops. And, you know, you think about, you yarn up to, say, 10 people per workshop, and they think it's deadly, and they go on and they get more way up in their life, and they go out and they talk to another 10 people. You know, that influence, that impact, that ripple gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So never, ever underestimate the things that you do and the impacts that you will have on our Mother Earth and on each other. So small steps do really make a difference. And Wayapa really invites you to look closely at your life and at your habits and question, is this the best way of doing things? Am I trading short-term convenience for longer-term gain and sustainability? And I think for most of us, the answer is yes. And we're often not making the best choices daily in many facets of our life to benefit our Mother Earth, but also generations to come. So when we're looking after our resources, when we're looking after our mother, engaging in that real, genuine, you know, earth custodian, earth stewardship role, you know, we're not just looking after us in the present moment, we're looking after our burais and our bubuks generations and generations down the track. And you know, that's a way of living that we were solid in and that we all used to live by. And I think we've lost our way in that a little bit. But I think that's for a reason. You know, as the minority culture, our ways of being kind of get swept up in this mainstream narrative of consumerism and capitalism and, you know, short-sightedness when it comes to our earth resources. And so when I talk to participants about Wayapa, I always talk to them, you know, well, focus on what you can do in your daily life, reflect, look at your daily choices, make one small change a day, commit to making one small change a week, you know, layer on, get small early wins and then layer on those changes. So whether it be get that keep cup, you know, start that veggie garden you always wanted, shop in a more ethical way for both your food and your fashion, you know, do those things, but and take more imperfect action more often rather than waiting for the perfect time to take just a small amount of action in that perfect moment that will probably never eventuate. And to share and to yarn about what you're doing. Like I said, you never underestimate your influence within your circles to lead people into making really deadly choices. So not only do I encourage you mob to do that for yourselves and your family, but also really challenge yourselves, especially in this time. You know, you might be working from home, you've got a bit more downtime at home, to become more connected with our resources and especially our waterways. We would have all seen the devastation occurring, especially up Murray-Darling Basin Way and, you know, the Murrumbidgee, one of my rivers, the Murrumbidgee way. Like, there's a lot of things going, and lots of parts of those rivers are not healthy right now. So I really encourage you to educate yourselves on ecosystems and get curious and reconnect with that side life. You know, it's a really exciting learning opportunity. I know growing up in the country, we had that opportunity at school, and that was given to us in school. We used to go down the river and check its health and look at the biodiversity, and I think as adults we move away from that. So really encourage you to maybe take on that challenge of educating and connecting with, might not be the waterways, it may be your local bushland, it may be, you know, Mary Creek. I've seen mob down there in Mary Creek cleaning it up, picking up the trash and doing a deadly job. So thinking about what impact, what commitment and what impact you're going to make today and in the weeks and months to come. So mind benefits of Wayapa. I'm certain all of you mob out there would have given meditation and mindfulness a bit of a crack and struggled. I know for me, one of the hardest things about mindfulness is you sit there thinking, am I doing this right? Like, I can't feel anything. All I can hear are my own thoughts racing away. So Wayapa gives us, and the narrative of Wayapa gives us an anchor point to engage in, so we can engage in that present moment, in that mindfulness, and embrace the teachings and learnings of Wayapa. So the Western world has built this evidence base of what works and what doesn't work for our mind, and it's really only just catching up to our ancient ways of being and what our old people knew and understood, and what kept us well for so long. So mindfulness, the practices, the narrative meditation that Wayapa utilises is proven to reduce symptoms of mental health issues. And at some point in our lives, we will have all experienced a symptom of mental health or mental illness, mental health issues, I guess. We all would have felt a little down, a little frustrated. Our sleeping would have been crap. Our eating wouldn't have been that good. Or we may have experienced a really serious problem. So we all kind of sit on that mental health spectrum, and we can have good mental health, or we can not have good mental health, or we're somewhere in the middle, or shifting along the way. So if we know that Western way, it tells us that mindfulness and meditation can reduce these symptoms and improve our mental health. And we know that our ancestors knew this. So the Western world are kind of catching up with us now. Body benefits. As a fitness coach, maybe some of you might have trained with me before, but I love movement. And I think sometimes, you know, when I used to work with young people, I used to work at Headspace, so I used to sit in a room with them, and I said, this young fella doesn't need me asking them, you know, questions and that. He or she just needs some support in moving a bit more or eating a bit better, and, you know, some of those fundamentals that we forget. So Wayapa, if you're not into exercise, it's a really good entry point into exercise, and it's really gentle, but, you know, if you've done the movement practice, you can really feel how it uses and gets those muscles working. I did a workshop, I think last week, and, you know, Miss footballer over here was getting really breathless going through the 20-25 minute movement practice. So it's very deceptive. It's good for all fitness levels, but it does give you a good workout. So we should be exercising, you know, 20 to 30 minutes, you know, 3 to 4 times a week, and Wayapa can give that to us. So it's about kind of working smarter, not harder. So spirit benefits Wayapa full. So for me, it helps. Wayapa helps us and gives us another tool to be able to sit with some of our pain and some of our discomfort. And just a disclaimer here, you know, when we engage in mindfulness and meditation, we may need a bit of support, because what's going on for us inside might be too much for us to hold, and that's why we might be a bit disconnected. So always seek out support when you need it, and yarn up to someone for some of these kind of tools that we're talking about, especially mindfulness, especially if you're going through some, and don't be ashamed to seek help, especially if you're going through some tough mental health times. But for me, it helps you to sit and bear that, some of that pain and discomfort that can really make us turn to some activities that really fill the void. So things like, and I know I'm bad for it, I get on TikTok and I scroll. When something's stressing me out, I get on social media and I don't want to know about it. So when we get our spirit strong and re-engage, connect back to self, connect back to body, mind, spirit, connect back to food, connect back to family, we naturally will drop off some of these behaviours that aren't helpful to us, and really just take up a lot of our time and disguise and help us cope with some of our pain. So just a little challenge for you, mob, to have a reflect and think about, what are some of the avoidant behaviours that you engage in? Is it the old TikTok? Is it using, on a serious note, is it the way you're using too much alcohol, or, binge eating too much? And like I said, if it's stuff that is bigger for you, it might just be something that's become a little bit problematic right now. But if it's stuff that's a little bit bigger and you feel like you need that extra support, there's that Yarning Safe and Strong line that you can connect with right now, but also you can just go to your GP or talk to Beyond Blue or something like that to talk about getting that professional support right now. All right, moving into finding the silver lining. So, challenging times, unprecedented times. I'm glad I get a platform to talk about these unprecedented times. So what you can think about what we're all experiencing right now is a response to grief and loss. And to go that little bit step further, we could call it kind of ambiguous loss, because normally when we experience a loss or a trauma, it happens for a period of time and then it ends. And then you've just got to deal with the effects of that loss and that trauma. But what we're kind of in right now is this kind of chronic trauma and this disaster response that is really once in a lifetime for us. And as humans, we are thoroughly unprepared for what we're experiencing. So before we do go looking at silver linings, I think we need to talk about processes, and that we are all in the same pandemic, but we're all having really different responses to it, and these responses constantly fluctuate and are dependent upon a lot of different variables. So step one is to acknowledge and validate to whatever level of response you may currently be experiencing, and practicing kindness and self-compassion so you can move into a space where silver linings seem possible. This will require radical acceptance and mindfulness, which is what Wayapa can help us get to. It can make us really present enough to kind of produce that acceptance of the space we're in, because there is no end in sight, and that's leaving us in a limbo. And that's the ambiguity of it all. And it's hard to plan and kind of see the future and see the light at the end of the tunnel, because it's really not there. So something a colleague kind of passed on to me and talks about it in this way of coping for these times is to really expect less of yourself. So taking the time to, and COVID and coronavirus has given us the time to really stop from the busyness, and given us a gift of self-reflection. Where do I get my energy from? How do I look after myself? And really engage in that self-discovery. So some of these next couple of things that I'm talking about is what were passed on to me from a colleague. So I can't take ownership of some of these words. And maybe I'll have a yarn with James about how I can get you this article, because it is an amazing article. But I guess that for me is the biggest silver lining, that it's given us that gift of time. It's stopped us. We've had to look at ourselves and those things that I mentioned before. So energy, that self-discovery. We're looking for activities, kind of new and old, and that continue to fulfill us. So looking at our self-care toolkit already, and the issue with that is some of those things aren't going to be accessible to us right now. And I'm absolutely I love going to get a mani-pedi. It's not available to us right now. And things like that, going to have a coffee with friends, we can't do that. What's always going to be there? Mother Nature, Mother Earth, the environment, thinking about connecting Wayapa with earth work and ways of doing that. We have time, we can look at, well, what are we doing? So we are living through history, and I'm not minimizing anyone's experience at all, but simply just presenting a reframe. So looking at how one of the other silver linings of this current time is how much we are valuing some of the simple and most meaningful things. So things like touch, hugs, I miss a bloody good high five, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that, fist bumps, kisses, all of those things that I would suggest we're taking for granted. You know, we're really starting to value them right now. Families, friends, how much we soak in the 60 minutes of getting outside, and when we're outside, looking and actually experiencing what we were a part of. I know that, you know, I used to go for a walk, head down in the phone, just not appreciating, expressing gratitude for everything that is around us. So some of us do have technology too that can still help us connect and stay connected as a community. And I think that's one of the other really big silver linings as well for me is as a community, how we've connected and how we've really banded together and risen up to hold and support each other. So there's a lot of support out there for our mob, and I just, you know, informally as being part of the community, seeing how everyone's reaching out and just making sure that kind of no one's left behind. So looking at that reframe and thinking, well, you know, Wayapa teaches us how to go back to a really purposeful, meaningful and slow way of living, and COVID's given us that gift of time and to really value and engage in some of these things. I actually have been doing an immersion, a Wayapa Wuurrk immersion, and I just wanted to share this really beautiful story of one of my participants. She's a non-Aboriginal woman, and she's found herself unexpectedly stuck, for lack of a better word, in Melbourne. She's normally kind of globe-trotting. I think she normally lives in New York. And so she's been living at a friend's house in Fitzroy for a couple of months now, since the first lockdown, with no kind of end of when she can return home. And the way she spoke about wanting to learn about Naarm and the Wurundjeri people and the traditional land on which she became stuck on was just beautiful, and the immense gratitude that she expressed to the land for holding her and keeping her well for this lockdown period. It really moved me and made me think, well, that's exactly what, you know, Wayapa gives us. And even though it's come to us in a way we probably we don't want and definitely don't prefer, I mean, it's here. So using this time and this gift in the best way we can, and re-engaging in the lands that are holding us and keeping us well. So how do we apply Wayapa to get through these challenging pandemic times? So you can jump on the website, and the Wayapa Wuurrk website. It's got heaps of different ways you can access Wayapa and get it more in your life, and attend either an introduction workshop, an immersion by a practitioner, do the practitioner course yourself, or do an online course just to use it for your own personal use, or go to the shop and purchase the practice through DVD, so you can practice and learn and put that into your everyday routine and like I said before, in your self-care toolkit. So we can use Wayapa the practice, the movement practice, to keep us well and strong. So seeking out ways of doing that and learning more about doing that and learning the narrative and the elements. we can think about the concepts, the ways of being that we've talked about for First Nations mob. And even from tonight, think about, well, how can I apply that? How can I go forward and apply that? Not only through this lockdown period and not through this pandemic, but moving forward, and what can I teach my children about this? And what are my reflections bringing up for me that could be shifted? And I've said that I'm connecting with the course or practitioner via the website. So that's it from me, guys. I think I've yarned up just enough. And thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you for checking this out later. If you're checking it out later, feel free to get in touch with the mob and at Wayapa to explore some of this, of how we can apply this going through these challenging times. And always, always, always happy to yarn and connect with you guys whenever. So, connect, socials, hopefully after the pandemic in real life. And I'd just like to welcome James back to the stage.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jacara. And like you mentioned before, thanks for being such a late call-up. It's much appreciated by the team here at Kinaway, and I'm sure it's appreciated by everybody who tuned in this evening. And we did get a few questions that came through while you're presenting, so I'd like to just present a few questions if we can get through them. So the first one is from Stephen, and he asked, thanks, Jacara, for joining us. What are some ways we can look after Mother Earth?
So whenever I do a workshop, I always get amazing suggestions. So some of the really easy ones that I do, because I struggle, I can't grow my own herbs, for example, because they just die. So when I thought about how did I implement it in my life, I started little. Being a mum, one of the things I observed was we're utilising using the disposable diapers, and I thought this can't be good. So I did my own research and we looked into getting the bamboo cloth diapers, and we used them most of the time. We didn't use them all the time. So it's just about being kind to yourself and doing what you can do. So then we lay it on from there. So we gave the herb garden a go, growing your own herb garden or veggie garden, being mindful of where you're purchasing food from and purchasing organic produce, and that idea of demand really drives supply. So if we're all out there demanding that we get our veggies straight from the farmer or the organic veggies and that, that's going to become, because the argument for that is, that's really expensive. Well, it's going to become less expensive if there's more demand for it. Keep cups, bamboo cutlery, reduce your waste, reduce your plastic use altogether, not just recycling plastic, get rid of the plastic. Look at ethically, there's a couple of apps, the Good On You app and, that's the Palm. So the Good On You app will rate fashion brands on how ethically they source their materials, how they pay their workers, all that kind of stuff. So you can buy, again, demand drives supply, so we can make a change there. Learning more about your local area, looking at using native plants. One of my tutors, Zena Kunston, this is on my socials too, you can get on the website. She's a research fellow at Monash. She's just produced a booklet around native plants and using Indigenous plants. So kind of education too. Education's a big part of this, looking into things like that, looking into, like I said before, how we're existing in our ecosystems and the biodiversity. So it's really a spectrum, and it's just about what you can take on at this time in your life and what you can layer into your life. You don't have to do one big overhaul. You just got to get those small wins and keep kind of layering them on top of each other until, eventually you're living a completely different way of life.
Sure. Thanks, Stephen. I believe another answer from Gary, and he asks, how, as a non-Indigenous person, can I find that balance with Mother Earth?
And I actually had this conversation with one of my friends too. I was talking to her about how that we were heading down back on country for a whale ceremony, and she said to me, with Jamie and the Wayapa mob, and she said, "Oh wow, I wish I had something like that, to connect with, like culture and ceremony." And I said, "Oh, so you probably do. You just got to look into your ancestors. You've come from somewhere. You look at your family line and how they would have connected with the earth." But Gary, what I can say that's more like a big kind of macro idea, but I'd definitely look into a Wayapa either introduction or immersion. As practitioners, we all bring something different. The core of the workshops are the same, but we all bring our own experiences to it. So get on the website, check out what the practitioners are doing, check out what Wayapa are doing. This is definitely a good place to start for non-Indigenous people. But then again, also, it's just taking those small steps to look after her a little better and spend a bit more time connecting with her. So doing your mindfulness, sitting by a river or sitting out in nature and just soaking in her energy.
Wonderful. Thanks, Gary. The next one is from Julia. I find convincing others to make better choices can be daunting and difficult. Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I struggle with this sometimes too, but I always come back to my circle of influence. And you might think it's a bit preaching to the choir, but there are always going to be the people who are your number one supporters, and they're on board. And and then you've got those people who are, and you've got to convince, and then they'll come on board. And then there's people who probably, no matter what you say, are probably not going to come on board. So you've just got to be, I guess, for me, it's just be passionate and know your values. When people see you, living by your values and by your passion, people get, what's that? That's contagious. Like, people love that. And they're like, I want more of that in my life too. So focus on your circle of influence, because like I said before during the presentation, you can never underestimate your impact and what that circle of influence will have somewhere else. So control your controllables where you can, talk to the people who are willing to listen, and people are at different stages of their journey. So it's more about how do I sit with that than trying to convince that person to come on board. It's like, well, you are at a different stage of your journey, looking forward to connecting with you when we're more at a similar stage.
Sure. Thanks, Julia. We have two left. The second last question is from Oliver. And it should pop up, but I have it. There we are. And he asks, what other more personal small changes can we make? I know we spoke about making impact, but what about in personal situations? I thought maybe eating healthier, exercising more, or having more of a routine.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about personal health. Yeah. They're all fabulous things. Yes. And they're everything I would say straight off the bat. Routine, and you're going to, it's just a broken record. If we're working from home, it's really easy, really slippery slope. I'll just put my trackies on. I'll sleep in for 10 minutes. And, you get a bit slack with it all. As best you can, stick to a routine, especially with your sleep. You've got to keep your sleep on track. It's so important to staying well and to dealing with the roller coaster that is COVID, and dealing with the moods and the anger and the frustration that comes to it. So if we're well slept, we're eating healthy, and we're exercising at least 30 minutes a day, that's a really solid foundation. We've all heard that metaphor. We can't build a good house if our foundation is a bit shaky. So those things that you've mentioned, add sleep, are definitely your solid foundation, and then you build from there. So get those things in order, and then look at if it's Wayapa, if it's looking at your own project to improve the environment, reduce your impact on the environment, then you start layering on that.
Lovely. I hope that helps, Oliver. And this is the final one, and it seems fitting as well. She says, this from Indy. She says, thanks, Jacara. How can we access the Wayapa course? I know we touched on it throughout the presentation, but perhaps you can just remind participants here tonight.
Yeah, Absolutely. So Wayapa Wuurrk have their own website. There first, all the practitioners, most of the practitioners should be on it, and there's a calendar and what they're offering will be in there. There is also, I believe, a Facebook, like it's all on socials as well. Yeah. You can find, I'm real shame about giving myself a plug. I'm starting an immersion tomorrow night, so follow me on my socials if you like, and just keep up to date. But like I said, there's a lot of us out there. We all bring something really valuable to the practice, so check us all out, get on the website.
And I've got one last question. What are your socials, in case anyone wants to jump on?
At Jacara, it's spelled a little different, Jaquara _Jean, Jean, at Jacara _Jean.
Lovely. And for anyone that has any more questions who tuned in this evening, please feel free to reach out to us here at Kinaway, and we can put you in touch with the team at Wayapa Wuurrk or with Jacara as well. On that note, I would just like to thank you again, Jacara, for joining us this evening, and especially for being such a late caller. It's really, really appreciated by everyone at Kinaway and also those that tuned in.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And I'd just like to thank also everyone that tuned in this evening, all the participants. We hope you all enjoyed this evening's webinar. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, make sure you leave a like on tonight's video, subscribe, and turn on the notifications to receive timely Kinaway updates.